Shadow in the Closet, a Nightmarish Tale. And David had always been afraid of the closet in his room. As a child, he would often feel a sense of unease whenever he passed by it, as if something was watching him from within its shadows. He tried to ignore these feelings and told himself it was just his imagination, but the fear never fully went away. Years went by and David grew up to become a successful businessman. He had left his childhood fears behind, or so he thought. However, one night, as he was getting ready for bed, he heard a strange noise coming from the closet. He tried to ignore it, but the sound persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. Eventually, he couldn't take it any longer and slowly approached the closet. As he reached for the doorknob, his hand trembled. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open, bracing himself for what he might find. But to his surprise, there was nothing there. The closet was empty, just as it had always been. David let out a sigh of relief, but the fear lingered. He felt as if something was still watching him, even though he was alone in the room. Over the next few weeks, David began to experience strange occurrences in his home. Doors would creak open on their own, and he would hear footsteps in the hallway when no one else was there. He would wake up in the middle of the night to find his furniture rearranged and objects would mysteriously disappear from their usual places. David became increasingly paranoid, and he felt as if he was being watched all the time. He confided in a friend about his experiences, and his friend suggested that he seek the help of a psychic. David was skeptical but desperate for answers, so he agreed. The psychic told him that there was a dark energy in his home and that it was attached to the closet. She explained that the energy was feeding off of his fear and that it would continue to torment him until he faced his fears head on. David took the psychic's advice and decided to confront the monster in his closet. He approached the closet with a sense of determination, ready to face whatever was inside. As he reached for the doorknob, he suddenly heard a voice whisper in his ear, "You shouldn't have never opened the door." He hesitated for a moment, but then mustered the courage to push the door open. The closet was no longer empty. Instead, he found himself face to face with a monster, a grotesque creature that seemed to be made of shadows and darkness. The monster lunged at David, and he fought back with all his might. The battle lasted for what felt like hours, and David was pushed to his physical and mental limits, but eventually he emerged victorious. He had banished the monster from his home, but the fear and paranoia lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching him, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. David tried to return to his normal life, but the fear never fully went away. He would often have nightmares about the monster, and he found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, never fully able to shake the feeling that something was still after him. He sought the help of a therapist to try to come to terms with his fear, but the memories of the monster seemed to be ingrained in his mind. Years went by, and David eventually got married and had children of his own. He tried to put his past behind him and live a normal life, but the fear always lingered in the back of his mind. One day, as he was helping his son clean out his room, he was stunned to see that his son had a monster in his closet just like he did. David's heart sank as he realized that the monster had followed him, passing down its curse to the next generation. David was torn between wanting to protect his son and not wanting to revisit his own traumatic experience. But ultimately, he knew that he couldn't let his son face this terror alone. So, with a heavy heart, David confronted the monster once again. This time, he was not only fighting for himself, but for the safety and well-being of his family. The battle was even more intense than the first time, but in the end, David emerged victorious once again. He managed to banish the monster from his son's closet and the entire house. He realized that he was stronger than he ever thought possible, and that he had the power to overcome his fears. And David made a promise to himself that he would never let the monster terrorize him or his family again. He finally found peace and was able to put the traumatic events of his childhood to rest. He became a better husband, father, and person, and he lived the rest of his life without fear, always watching over his family, ready to face any monsters that may come their way.